Why hello there, and welcome back to Shuffle Junkies. You know, a new expansion happens. You may have seen the ASMR video I put together for the pack opening, and it's time to start looking at decks. And now I said I was going to look at Omen of One first, but gotta be honest with you, it's really hard to make a fun deck out of that, and that's because there's so many limitations. And we're gonna get to that deck, don't worry. I'm gonna complain about that a lot. But for now, let's talk about Lapis, Glorious Seraph, and the kind of decks you could do with Lapis. We're just going to look at one deck today, and in fact, we're not even going to talk about the deck right now. We're going to look at games, and then after those games, we're going to talk about the deck. But I do need something for the intro screen, so here it is. You can see the deck. Now let's see it in action, and then we'll talk about what each of these cards do, and why they're here. Alright, first off we have another Havencraft player. Now for these games, I'm just taking 4 of my games from the most recent Grand Prix. It's probably the Grand Prix that's happening right now, unless you're watching this a few weeks after this has gone up, in which case it's not the current Grand Prix. This is the first Grand Prix of the new expansion. And it looks like my opponent is playing Holy Lion. They're playing a Holy Lion deck. So, a relative budget deck, but still an effective deck, especially if you have a relatively limited card collection. Holy Lion's a nice one if you know, aren't rolling in legendaries. Whereas the deck we're currently playing does have its fair share of legendaries. And its fair share of gold cards. Now, just to get us started here, the idea, of course, control the board as best we can. We want to have a relatively decent amount of health when we start healing back up soon, so we're trying to mitigate damage as best we can. And we want to start, you know, preparing for the future. For the heals, we're going to need to activate our Tenko Shrine, which is why we're choosing the Black Diamond, we're taking the Unicorn Spear. This expansion brought a lot of interesting Tenko support, namely in the form of the Unicorn Knight here. You could either get the Unicorn Spear, which does 4 damage and heals you for 1, which will trigger your Tenko Shrine, or you could get a Unicorn, which is a 6-drop, 5/5, and when it enters the battlefield you could heal yourself for 3, which again will activate your Tenko. So, pretty handy. I'm gonna go ahead and clear the board. I'd rather play Tenko when I don't have a lot of threats to deal with, or when I already have healing effects in play. So for that reason, we're going to play De La Phil next turn. That way, every turn, Tenko Shrine has an activator. There it is. There she is. So now, once a turn, we will heal at the end of our turn. Another nice thing is playing Tenko on 7 means I could play one of my 2-drops with it, namely a Unicorn Knight, and start getting additional resources for healing in the future. And there's our true win condition we just drew, Lapis, Glorious Seraph. So we're just gonna load up on amulets here. Rather than playing the Unicorn Knight into an empty board. Oh, they also play a Tenko Shrine. However, we do have a solution for Tenko Shrine. It's not just our spell that we could use on 6, we also have Satanga. Go ahead and get some more healing for the future. Now, Satanga is actually it's a counter not just for Tenko Shrine, it's a counter for specifically the new Portal Legendary with its Cannot Be Destroyed amulets. Banishment works. So Satanga will protect you from the terrifying idol character who generates the deal 10 damage at the start of your turn every turn amulet combo. So, Satanga, a card I never used and suddenly I'm using it a lot more. Alright, let's get our win condition on the board and use it to trade one of these 4s away. A nice rule of thumb is if your opponent has an evolved minion and an unevolved minion, and they're doing roughly the same damage, get rid of the unevolved minion. That way they can't surprise evolve another minion on you. Not that we have to worry about that with Havencraft, but for other classes, if you leave the evolved one alone and you get rid of the unevolved one, you prevent potential damage. Alright, they did us a real solid there by killing Seraph, because now the countdown to victory has started. We're just gonna bring that down to 2 health, play a White Fang Temple, and now we're guaranteed... Ooh, 2 White Fang Temples, goodness me. Past me, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that I'm pretty much set to win because they have 2 cards. I have 3 pulses of 2 damage per turn, and there's a countdown clock, and I'm at full health. There's no way we're losing this match. They had another Tenko. So it's a Tenko Lion combo deck, which you may recall I've done a video of past, and I was a big fan of that deck for a while. And still am, to be honest. It's a fun deck. It's a nice combination of elements that you can have some fun with, and they concede. A nice easy one to get the ball rolling on these matches. Well, alright. That was the budget deck that you might run into, a nice lion deck. But what about the top of the meta pyramid? What about goddamn bat blood? Everyone's favorite deck to play and everyone's favorite deck to hate on, because it's everywhere, and it is brutally fast and efficient. And you know, it's relatively cheap to craft. It's 3 of the Dark Feast Bat as the most important legendary. The new legendary is a nice addition, but it's not even a necessary addition to the new deck. You could put this together pretty cheap. Anyway, to get us started, I'm going to banish, when I can banish, anything that's going to do damage to our opponent as opposed to ourselves. Omen of Lust, that's the new legendary. A nice addition, but a non-necessary addition. We're just gonna Marwin here. It'll heal us back up to 20. I'm really doing it for the card draw and a little bit of ramp, because the sooner I can play my win conditions, the better for me. And the idea here is if I play Marwin on 4, I could skip 5, go straight to De La Fill, and then the next turn I'll have 7 play points and I can Tenko into another minion, ideally one that will generate some healing effect or some useful spell. We do have Holy Priest in our hand. Her evolve effect will, in fact, generate us some goodies. Regardless, first we want De La Fill. We want to get the ball rolling on the healing, because when it comes to Dark Feast Bat, they can have an 11 damage Dark Feast Bat on turn 7. I've consistently lost games to 11 damage Dark Feast Bats on turn 7, so you gotta keep your health pretty high. You gotta keep track of how much damage your opponent's doing to themselves, which is tough because they're constantly healing and doing damage and healing. Anyway, they played a minion with 2 health, which is our favorite health total for a minion. And since we don't need to trade or to generate anything this turn, we're just gonna play an investment for the future. And because we have another Marwin in hand, we could surprise pop that amulet next turn if we want to. You'll see Marwin is a multi-use legendary in this deck. It's not just about ramping us so we can get a little bit faster Tenko plays. It's not just about the heals for the Tenko activation. It's not just about drawing a card. It's a combination of all those things. And most importantly, it's about reducing the countdown on amulets. A remarkably useful effect. Alright, so they do us the kindness of killing our Seraph. And now we could really see the nice benefits of this Marwin and its countdown acceleration. So that's 1 countdown off Lapis, and now let's play Marwin and have our Seraph go again. There we go. We also have a Hallowed Dogma in hand, so why don't we perhaps do that as well? Just gonna go ahead and get some stuff that I won't use. Actually, I will use Lorena's Holy Water. I remember what I did this match. There we go. And now, Valhalla Dogma. And now we win next turn. Unless they have a 17 damage Dark Feast Bat, the game is over on our turn. Just period. Full stop. And if I ever get the chance to click on this, yeah, last words, win the match. So next turn we just win. So our opponent's gonna show us all of the fun cards they have in their hand that won't help them this turn. You know, Vera is actually another legendary that's in this deck that is relatively important, because look at all of the damage they're doing without taking damage. So it's like a 6 legendary deck as a minimum. And there it is, there's our Lapis win. Delightful. Alright, Forest Craft. There's really only 2 proper top tier decks right now, and that's one of those dragon decks that I hate, and as we just saw, Dark Feast Bloodbat. Those are the 2 big ones. There might be a 3rd top tier deck that's been rumbling around, but after that we do in fact have all kinds of other decks, and one of them is our favorite aggro forest. Or tempo forest, or any variation really. Forest is still pretty effective at building a wide, shallow board and then buffing that board. But if there's any perfect matchup for us, it's a deck like this. As long as we could stay alive into turn 5 or so, and we have Tenko. If we could set up the board so that we're constantly pumping out just 2 damage flip-flips, we're able to clear the board relatively quickly and easily. Obviously we have Themis' Purge if things go wrong and we're on turn 8. We can get to turn 8 a lot faster thanks to Marwyn. Otherwise we have just lots of options for how to deal with minions. We can generate lots of things. Just gonna tempo out our Holy Priest there. Unfortunately, they do have Matera. Such a great card. I love Matera. And that puts us into a little bit of a sticky situation. We don't have Tenko, but we can start generating cards that will help us draw into Tenko, and we will remove Matera because that's a decent-sized threat that will allow them to continuously draw cards. We don't really want that to stick around. Alright, a 3-3, a 2-1. We're healing for 1 each turn, so nothing too scary. A good time to play De La Phil. And we'll just get rid of that 2-1. It's done enough damage. And thanks to De La Phil's healing effect, it's like we only take 2 points of damage there. It's just a nice big body, and now it's a nice big body with ward protecting a 6-6. We'll see if they can get rid of both our big threats. They can certainly get rid of one of them. They return 1 to our hand. So now we have a 6-6-6 in our hand. We'll just play it, and we'll play our white diamonds. So it turns out, not aggro forest, it's a little bit of a mid-range control forest. I'm not sure what's going on in their deck. It might be King Elephant, but then there's Fairy Saber. You know, I think this is just a funsy deck that someone put together. But it's alright. I was appreciative for the nice variety of decks we got to go up against. That way I was able to put together a video showing off all the different types of opponents you can go up against with this deck. We do have enough healing that even though I don't have a replay of the top tier dragon deck that's currently in meta, I can tell you this deck can win against it if you play well. You're able to typically out-heal the damage they're putting out, Their new legendary can pump out a whole mess of damage, but they need a lot of cards, very specific cards in hand to do that. And if you apply enough pressure, they can't hold on to those cards long enough. Jan, always a nice board clear to have. And we're just gonna, again, so we have stuff on the table, we're gonna play our Holy Priest, not using her Evolve effect. I think, oh, they just end their turn. We have another Jan. We're gonna play her, and we're probably gonna play that White Fang Temple as well. Yep. It's almost like I played these matches. I'm trying to remember how this match ends, because it's been a little while. Just leaving that mouse right there. I don't remember if this was a Seraph win or a Tenko win. Considering we don't have either in our hands, it's probably a Seraph win. We've been holding on to an Evolve point for a while. This is a nice time to use it. And thanks to Themis' Purge in hands, I'm not too worried about not having that final Evolve point. Our opponent, meanwhile, if they trade with a minion, is probably going to have to say goodbye to the minion. Ooh, they're going to return it to my hand. I got bad news for them. It still generates the Unstatued Seraph. Fun fact. Alright, so they have 10 damage on the table, but you know what we have? We have 2 Marwins in hand. So, let's just play 2 Marwins. I'm sure you could do the math on what that means for us. It means we win, but that's what it means. Hollow Dogma. So we definitely just won. And this is why sometimes it's a nice idea to hold on to your Marwins if you don't have anything in hand you're trying to rush over to, or if you don't need the draws. Because it just works its way over to helping you win the game. Just Hollow Dogma that. And there you go. If you were curious about why Marwin's in the deck, or in any deck really, that's why. And now, of course, it's everyone's favorite deck. Swordcraft, mid-range, built around Arthur. Get comfy, because this is, out of all of the matches you just saw with this control deck, this is the absolute most control version of the deck you're going to see. At least today. Takes us a while to get a lot of things going here in this particular match, so we have to play a very meticulous, slow, control-oriented match. And that's what we do. Get some draws going. I want to get my Seraph soon. We're not feeling too bad though, because we do have a Tenko in hand. We have 2 Unicorn Knights, which means we're able to generate plenty of healing, and we have a White Fang Temple. Gonna go ahead and take a Unicorn Spear. In general, Unicorn Spear is the one you want to take if you are earlier in the game. Unicorn's a better choice when you're later in the game, because it's more healing, you're probably going to need more healing, and it's a body, and you're probably going to need bodies. Whereas in the early game, Unicorn Spear is decent removal, and it still has that heal, so if you hold on to it for later, you just get the double effect of triggering your Tenko. Go ahead and get rid of that before it snowballs. And we're just going to generate a Horsey here. Since next turn we could Tenko, and the turn after that we could Unicorn. Although, now that they play Frontline Cavalier, we're gonna have to consider whether or not we want to leave that alive on the board or not. We might want to just Unicorn Spear that away. Guess we would heal 3 the next turn with our Unicorn, but... this looks like what we're doing. So we're gonna soak up at the very least 6 damage, potentially more. The answer is definitely more. So we took a risky play there to get our Tenko on the board. But the hope here is we have enough removal in hands that we can take care of the problem. And it looks like we guessed right. We are going to Jan here because if I were to play White Fang Temple, it would just do 2 damage. It's not enough to clear. But an Evolved Jan can take care of one of those minions. And I need to minimize damage when we're at half health. Well, below half health now. But this is all fine. You know, we have our De La Fill, which means we could start getting the Tenko engine rolling. Now every turn we're doing at least 2 damage. And once again, they have an evolve point, so getting rid of their unevolved minions means I don't have to worry about bonus damage. And thankfully they wasted 6 mana just to remove my De La Fill and save an evolution point. Alright, Black Inscription means we can easily take care of the 3/4 just by playing a White Fang Temple. I should have played Globe of the Starways. I have a habit of ending my turn when I'm at one play point and I just played my last card. I just hit end before I see what I draw. A very bad habit. Alright, this is fine. You know, we have Themis' Purge, but also we have Marwyn, who will take 1 tick off the countdown and remove our opponent's minion. And now we're gonna start doing damage to our opponent, which is very nice. Gonna Hallowed Dogma this, that way we get some cards next turn, rather than waiting. There we go. Heal for 2, do 4 damage. We're sitting pretty with a 4/4. We finally baited out their last goddamn evolution. It's finally been happened, so we've gotten out of their system. And we just keep on healing just out of range of their lethal. Alright, so this is gonna seem like a terrible waste, but we are gonna Themis' Purge. We ran the math. Playing Jan wouldn't have been enough. Sorry, Joan, Jan, whatever you want to pronounce the name as. It wouldn't have cleared the board unless we got extremely lucky in a couple of Tenko pings. And even then, it wouldn't have cleared. We'd have only gotten rid of most of the things. But that's fine, because a Jan here will clear. Perfect. I don't mind that Tenko's not going to be hitting their face this turn, because honestly, the idea is to have them run out of steam. I'm able to draw so many cards. Alright, there's an Arthur. We have a solution to Arthur. I'm sure you're familiar with its work. It's Themis. Just gonna make this problem go away with a well-placed Themis' Purge. We're gonna drive our opponent absolutely bananas with this match, I'm sure. Because they play Arthur and they're like, alright, that's it. That's the one. I purge it. They play Arthur again. Oh yes, this is the one. He can't clear this board. Sorry, friend. I can. I've been holding on to all of my purges for this very reason. Just go ahead and get more draw in the old queue. We have a lot of White Fang Temples in hands. We could start healing up, even more so than we are now. And we got another Tenko Shrine, which means if we play Tenko Shrine, we clear the board easy now. And we're just gonna set up for more future damage. And, you know, of course, generating minions. So we're gonna heal for 2. We're gonna clear the board. And again, you know, it keeps us just out of their range for lethal. Chromatic Duel's fine. I imagine their plan here is, yes, play white first, then black. So now my Tenko cannot clear this problem, but we've been holding on to a collection of cards specifically to make sure we can clear anything. And there we go. So now we do 2, 4, 6, 8 damage a turn. next turn it's gonna be even more damage. Ah, so sad. You know, they could do 2 damage, but that 6 doesn't have Storm. Just White Fang Temple. And a Unicorn, and that'll clear the board. Once we hit end turn, there it is. Such a brutally drawn out loss for this sword. They had us down to no health, and we have climbed all the way back up to 14. We have a dominating board presence, and we're pumping out so much damage at the end of every turn. And there you have it. There is the deck I've called Raising Heaven, and it is a Lapis Tenko combo win condition deck here. And I like it because, you know, you have the classic Tenko win condition of just grind your opponent into dust beneath your heels by healing constantly out of their lethal range, and just pinging away all their minions and eventually pinging their face down into a paste. And then, of course, there's Lapis Glorious Seraph, a card that if they kill it, summons a Statue Seraph. If they banish it, summons a Statue Seraph. If they return it to your hand, summons a Statue Seraph. The only thing that doesn't summon a Statue Seraph is a transformation. And there's not a lot of that in Standard right now, you know? In Rotation, people aren't playing a lot of transformation effects as removal. It's largely Bench, it's largely Destruction, and it's a little bit of Return. There's not a lot of transformation that's seeing a lot of play right now. So, Glorious Seraph is a lot of fun right now for that reason. Anyway, let's talk about all the cards in the deck. We have Globe the Starways, and this is a nice card because it costs 1, you play it, and it draws a countdown amulet. Specific draw is very nice draw, and we don't have that many countdown amulets now, do we? We have other Globe of the Starways, so it's thinning your deck, you know, you're gonna have less terrible draws in the future if you draw a Globe of the Starway, so it's fine if it draws itself. We have our countdown removal card, which is great, you know, we have multiple ways to trigger that early. We have Hollow Dogma, and we have Marwyn. So for that reason, this is extra versatile, you know, it's either 2 turns later, so we could prevent our opponents, from making certain plays. They have to play around this card, and we could surprise them when they play something early in the expectation that they can, the next turn, load up the board by popping it early. And the other thing we draw is White Fang Temple, which is probably the most important combination bit to Tenko's Shrine. So Globe of the Starways, pretty good for pulling relatively versatile and useful cards. And then its last word is just draw a card. So you know, it's draw 2, cost 1. It's a very good card. Seraphic Blade, it's easy removal for early minions. Anything that costs 2 or less, so that's great. And then on turn 6 or later, this is going to help you get rid of sticky amulets. It's going to help you get rid of big threats. It's another one of those cards that, you know, is useful in the early game and then becomes useful again in the late game. I love cards like that. Jeweled Priestess. It's a terrible body, but it does generate White Diamond, which draws you 2 cards for 1, which again, great value. Only has a countdown of 2. Or Black Diamond, which costs 1, and then 2 turns later does 2 damage to the leader and heals you for 2. So not only does it do a nice little ping, it also heals you, which if you have Tenko on the table will then cause another ping. So Jeweled Priestess, very good for draw, very good for damage. With Tenko, of course. Holy Priest Lorena is one of our evolve targets. It's a decent 2/2/2. Holy Water, very nice, you know, it's a standard 1 play point spell. Restore 2, draw a card. So you're drawing, you're healing, which triggers your Tenko. Iron Fist, on the other hand, is also pretty good. It's a 2-cost spell that does X damage to an enemy, and that X is equal to the strongest ally to play. So you could hold on to that for when you have a 6/6 on the table. You could use it with Holy Priest on turn 4 or turn 5 when your first evolution point happens to do 4 damage before you use her body for the final trade. So again, nice and versatile. Keeping the theme alive of versatile cards in the deck, Unicorn Knight, a surprise addition to the deck from the new expansion. I love this card. It's a 1/3, so again, not like crazy stats, but because it's a higher health, you're able to use it for good trades in the early game, But the big thing is you can generate a 5/5 6 cost minion that heals you for 3, so again, great Tenko trigger, but also a decent mid-game body. What I really like about it though is Unicorn Spear. Deal 4 damage, restore 1 health to your leader. So you could remove a minion, trigger your Tenko, do 2 damage. Again, just a very good card when Tenko's in the situation. Hollow Dogma, we've seen this in play. It's mostly here as a means of getting your Seraph win faster, but you can't not use it when you need to, so use it. Use it for triggering your remove a minion. Use it for getting your card draw early. Use it when you need to use it. Whenever you can get value out of it, take the value. Black Inscripture, just remove early minions, it's great. Or, you know, do a little bit of damage to a big minion and then clear it without having to trade additional minions. If you're looking for maximum value, aim for stuff that has last word effects, you know, prevent your opponent from taking advantage of their minion's full value. And when a card has a last word effect, it tends to be understated because the value is, again, coming from its final words. So you really rob them of tempo and value. It's a good card. Jan here. I really like Jan, Beacon of Salvation. If you have other minions on the board when you play her, it's going to trigger your Tenko. It's a board clear, which you need a lot of in this world. And again, I like it because it's versatile. It's either a decent little minion you could play, or you could use it for the board clear, and it could trigger your heal. Anything that has multiple effects is great. White Fang Temple. Backbone to every Tenko deck. End of your turn, you heal for 1. That triggers Tenko. When it finally runs out of countdown, and it has 8 countdown, so it's on the board for a while. Of course, that gets cut in half if you have other healing things in play, but that's fine because when it counts down, you get a 6/6 dragon. So, just worth it. Marwyn, as we saw, is a powerhouse in this deck. When I first saw this, I thought it was garbage because your opponent gets all the benefits, but that's not how a card game works when you think about it. When I play a card, even if it benefits my opponent, I'm in charge of deciding when it's played and what else is on the board when it's played, so I can maximize my value and play it on turns when my opponent isn't getting as much from it. So, its full list of effects is your opponent gets a play point, they get 1 countdown subtracted from their amulets, they are healed for 1, and then they draw 1 card, and then the same thing immediately after that happens to us. We get a play point, we subtract 1 from our countdowns, we heal for 1, and then finally we draw a card. So when we play it, you know, we're popping our amulets early, we're triggering our Tenko, and we're hastening our approach to our Lapis play. The second nice thing about it is in its evolved form, it cannot take more than 3 damage at a time. So your 6/6 can trade into a 9/6, and it just takes 3 points of damage. It's a great card as an evolution target for that reason, especially if you're playing it after De La Phil's been played, because it'll take 3 damage no matter what it hits, unless it's like, you know, less than 3 attack, but why are you trading into that? And then it gets healed for 1, so it's up to 4, which means it can't die to just 1 minion the next turn. So a nice combination piece to De La Phil over here. But first, Tenko's Shrine! Now this is half the win condition of the deck, because either you're going to win through the countdown of your in-statute Seraph, or you're going to grind your opponent into pace. Tenko is an easy enough card to understand. It's a 5-cost amulet, you put it in play. Every time anyone on your side of the table is healed, be it a minion or yourself, it goes off. And it does 2 damage to a random enemy follower. If there are no followers, then it goes face. So it clears your board, clears their board, and then it starts doing face damage. An incredibly powerful card, even after it got nerfed. This used to cost 4, now it costs 5. Satungar is really just here as a prevent your opponent from winning through amulets. So if they're playing Portal and they're playing the new Legendary, which is a combo deck of 2 amulets that are indestructible, this can banish one of those, or if you have 2 of your Satungars, 2 of them. And that prevents them from winning through that means, you know? You always go for the black diamonds, or whatever it's called, in that Portal deck. That way they can't just murder you through damage. So perfect counter to that. It's obviously another counter against the Tenko deck, and it's also a counter against Seraph because it can banish the amulets that Seraph produces. So, Satungar, great counter to a few decks that are currently floating around. Highly recommend you consider putting a Satungar in your decks. And of course, if they don't have any amulets, instead of getting a 3-2 for 6, which is terrible, but again, we're using them just for the removal element. If they don't have amulets and they're not a deck that plays amulets, you just play them on 6 when they don't have any amulets in play and you get a 6-5. You know, decent stats. Delafil, great card. It means you're always healing no matter what. It's going to be the rest of the match after she's played. So, you always want one of these in effect at some point, so Tenko is guaranteed to go off. Great cards. If you don't have one, consider crafting one. You know, it's just a good card in many decks. Even if you're not playing Tenko, healing every turn is a powerful effect. You know, it neutralizes friggin' Silva in what was that brutal portal deck. So Delafil. I love Delafil. Our second win condition, Lapis, Glorious Seraph, is a 7-6, evolves into a 9-8, so great stats. I mean, not super great when you consider it's an 8 cost, but good enough. Most importantly though, almost anything they do will generate your In Statute Seraph, and at that point, it's just a short countdown to win the match. And it's just a fun way to play the game, you know, I really enjoy it. You have multiple ways to speed up the countdown, so you could win the turn after that, amulet comes into play. You could Themis' Purge it, and you'll still get the benefits of having played her. It's great. I just love hyper control decks, and that's just a hyper control win condition. It's stay alive for 4 turns or 1 turn if you have multiple countdown accelerants in your hand. And last but not least, 3 Themis' Purges, because you're just trying to stay alive after you've played your win condition. And one option is literally just get your In Statute Seraph on the table and then spend 3 turns purging and preventing your opponent from building a board and winning. The whole time you're, of course, healing. And now that we've looked at every card, the combination that you're really looking for is, in the mid-game, establish your Tenko engine. So, you know, on turn 3 or 4, play White Fang. On 5, play Tenko. On 6, Delafil. Play a Marwyn if you need to, but maybe hold on to your Marwyns. And at that point, you have just a perpetual heal engine that's also damaging your opponent's minions. It's doing a little bit of face damage. It's doing the work of controlling the game for you, so you could focus on getting Lapis out and then winning through Lapis, while Tenko is your support. Tenko supports the Lapis play. And of course, if you don't have Lapis or you don't have Tenko, you focus on just playing Lapis and then keeping yourself alive, or you focus on playing Tenko and just murdering your opponent through heal damage synergies. So, as I've probably made abundantly clear, I love versatile decks. I love decks that they have a couple of win conditions. You could change how you play to suit your opponent, and you could change how you play to suit the situation at hand, and this is one of those decks. It's a very versatile deck, it has multiple ways to win, and if you just get one, you're fine. If you get both, you're really good, and if you get just the other, you know, again, you're probably going to be okay. So if you're looking for a fun way to play Haven, and maybe you drew a couple of Marwyns, and you're like, what the hell am I going to do with this fucking card? Here's a thing to do with that fucking card, you know? You only have 1 Lapis? You could probably get away with just 1 Lapis, you know? Just make it a mostly Tenko deck, and then Lapis is a surprise alternate win condition. If you have other cards you like, swap things in out. Swap things in, swap things out. You know, make it your own deck. I personally find this deck to be super fun, I really enjoy it, and if you've ever enjoyed Tenko, or you've ever enjoyed playing In Statute Seraph in the past, here's a new way to enjoy both. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little video, and next time, as a little preview, we're probably going to look at 2020 Vision here, which of course, if you couldn't guess, is going to be Prophetess of Creation deck, because who doesn't love Mimi control decks? I know I love Mimi control decks. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time here at Shake the Box. Drop a like if you liked it, subscribe for more, and maybe jingle that bell if you want to be annoyed by YouTube constantly. Oh, and check us out on Twitch. Okay, bye.